Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So for this week's video, it's gonna be week 4 peaking vlog part 2. So this is going to be all about bench press and plus some other stuff at the end. So yeah, it's gonna be the same timeline as last week's video. Last week was about squat and deadlift, and I split squat and deadlift and bench up to 2 separate videos because it was just too much information to put all into one video. Basically, I got some hip pain from a few weeks ago, and that greatly affected my squats and my deadlifts too a little bit. And in that video, I talked about how I solved it, like small changes that helped ease the pain, and then some bigger changes that I'm implementing in the future to help prevent that pain from reoccurring. So I got that pain on September 5th, and the next session I did after that was a squat and bench session on September 7th. So I did a 153 bench single, which ended up being RP 6.5 to 7. Because I do arch a good amount and I use a lot of leg drive, which you're supposed to use when benching, my hips were irritated by the bench press. So bench did make my hips worse. Of course, not as bad as squats, but it did affect my hip because I had to be in a super tight arch position when I'm bench pressing. And then my next major bench session was on September 10th, and that was the day I was supposed to attempt all my super heavy singles. But as I said in last week's video, I moved everything back half a week so I can have that pain dissipate and have my hip feel better before attempting heavy numbers. So on that day, I did some 135 bench triples, and with the hip pain, I can't arch as much, so my arch feels smaller, so that means I have to press a greater range of motion, so that made my lifts about 8 RP harder. Also, if you want to know about why powerlifters arch when they bench press and how it's actually better for you to arch when you bench press, check out this video. It'll be in the cards and in the description box below. And yeah, so during those days, I basically was just doing enough to maintain my strength and maintain training intensity, so like keeping me used to heavy-ish weights, but not adding up to my fatigue and making sure I'm not irritating my hip even more. And I also did some Larsen presses, 120 for 4. And Larsen presses are basically just bench press without my feet, so feet out on the bench. So I have a smaller arch and I'm not using leg drive, and that trains more of my chest. And then the next bench session was my top single session. So for bench press, I did warm-up starting with the bar. I usually do like the bar for a few slow reps, and then I do 95, and then 115, 135, 143, 150. 158, 163, and then I did a 168-pound bench single. The green ankle weights are 1.5 pounds each, so they add up to 3 pounds in total. So that's 168. And that moved that RP 9.5, and that is a 3-pound PR. So my previous max was 165, and I think I hit that in like December 2020. I always have trouble with my bench press at meets, so I never hit a like meet PR. I benched 165 exact in May before my high school nationals meet, and also in like March or so, but I never went over it because sometimes I'm programming a RP 8 or 8.5 single and I'm not supposed to overshoot, and I actually followed the program instead of maxing out whatever. So yeah, I'm really happy about that 168. It's been so long since I hit a bench press max. Also, it was a grind, but it didn't get stuck anywhere, which is good. As I said before, my problem with my bench press is that I just can't get it off the chest because that's my weakest point, especially with the pause. So doing long pause benches and Larsen presses have really helped with my sticking point. And for this block, I am doing close grip bench, and that also increases my range of motion, and it's more tricep work, which is nice. And I did 85 for 12, which doing 12 reps really does kill the triceps. They look pretty fast, but I swear at the end, my triceps were like burning. And then for funsies, I did some 135 long pause bench singles the next day. And I actually did forget my Romaleos, so I did just bench in my flats, which I haven't done in a very, very long time. And yeah, so that's it for my lifts. Overall, my bench press has improved a lot in the past few weeks after high school nationals because I've been doing more variations and doing like Larson's and long pause to work on my sticking point. So sometimes your sticking point should be addressed directly, like with my situation, but sometimes it's not worth it to specifically address a sticking point when you can progress your lift overall. So usually you're always gonna have a sticking point, so sometimes you have to see if it's worth it to address it or to just progress overall, doing like normal bench presses to just help build strength overall. So like for my squat, my sticking point's at the bottom, but it's not like I get stuck there very often. Most of the time when I do fail my squat, it's because it is too heavy for me to lift it. So I don't need to do like pause squats or whatever right now to specifically address that. I could just grow my squat overall. Anyway, with the remainder of the time in this video, I want to answer one question that I got from one of you guys. So I'm going to talk about dealing with confidence issues when increasing weight, when you start lifting, and how to push yourself more. That's basically the question. First of all, I just want to make a disclaimer. I'm a very positive person because of my Christian background. So I didn't personally deal with a lot of these issues, but I can give insights on how I avoided the issue or whatever. So when I started lifting, I was actually pretty skinny. I wasn't unhealthy skinny, but I was pretty skinny. You guys will know if you watched my 2-year powerlifting transformation video. I have a lot of pictures in that video. I was like around 110, 108, that kind of weight, and I was like 5'4", 5'5" at that time. First of all, I would just say try not to just dirty bulk, because when you dirty bulk, you're gonna put on a lot of body fat, and then you have to cut that off later, which I don't think it's worth it to do that. And also it's just not good for your body to dirty bulk. So try lean bulking. Usually that means adding a half a pound to 1 pound per month, and usually 1/4 of a pound of that is muscle. You want to be putting on as much muscle as you can and as less fat as you can. Of course, you can't put on 100% muscle. That's not how your body works. You're gonna put on fat while you put on muscle, but don't try to put on weight so fast. So more than a pound a month. If you're a female and my body type, don't try to put on weight too fast, because then you're putting on too much fat, because there's only so much muscle mass that you can put on per time period. So first of all, lean bulking is the way to go, and don't dirty bulk. Don't eat like super unhealthy foods. You still want to be healthy, because your health matters more than how much you can lift. When you add mass that slow, like a pound a month or half a pound a month, then you won't see your body change that fast, so that wouldn't be like a dramatic change visually. So that would help with confidence issues. Second, I would just say to not put your confidence in your physical appearance. Your physical appearance is something that can change, and it's like people's opinion. So one person can say I'm pretty while another person can say I'm ugly, and that doesn't mean I'm pretty or ugly. It's just a person's opinion. I think a lot of the problems with dealing with confidence issues in our society right now is, where do you put your identity in? And is it in something that can change, or is it in something that is steadfast? So in my reasons why people, especially women, should lift, I talked about this a little. So in that video, I talked about how you shouldn't put your worth and your confidence in your physical appearance, or in like how pretty your face is or whatever, because people can have different opinions on that. So you shouldn't put your worth in a opinion, first of all, like how your body looks like. So in that video, I talked about how when you know how much you can lift, like I know I can bench 168 pounds, no one can take that away from me, because that's a fact. So I can put my identity in a fact instead of a opinion. That's like what I talked about in that video. But on top of that, I would just say 2 things. One is that you should always care about your health more than how you look. I'm not gonna say health comes in very different forms. I'm being plain honest and not trying to be mean or anything, but obesity is unhealthy. Like, I'm not trying to fat shame or whatever, but you gotta like face the truth, right? Because finding the truth is really important, and you shouldn't be washing yourself up with lies and trying to fill your brain with that to make yourself feel better. So obesity is not good. Of course, if you're super skinny and have eating disorders, that's also not good. So healthy is what you should aim for your body. But having some fat on your stomach is actually more healthy than having nothing on your stomach. Like those bodybuilders, of course they cut a lot for their shows, but when you cut off so much body fat, you also ruin your hormones, and that can cause a lot of problems in your health. So health always comes first. And second thing I want to say is that you should put your identity in what is true and not in a opinion or a lie. And you should put your identity in something that's steadfast and is never changing. So I said how you look is a opinion, how much you can lift is a fact. However, it may not be steadfast. For example, if I suddenly get into a car crash or whatever, I lose my arms, I can no longer bench 168. Like, that's just obvious. I can't bench that. So would I lose my confidence since I can't bench 168 anymore? If I lose my legs and I can't squat and deadlift anymore, will I lose my confidence because I don't have my strength anymore? Like, it's impossible to squat without legs. if you don't know that? The answer is no, and that's because I put my identity in Christ. I am nothing without him. The only thing that is never changing and that is always true, never lies, and just is our God. That's where I put my identity. I am a child of God. I am a biblical Christian. So I put my identity in Christ, and no one can take that away from me. Like if someone tries to murder me, they might take away my body, but my soul still has Christ. That is the problem with our society right now. We try so hard to find an identity in your job, in your career, in your hobbies, or in your physical appearance, how much money you have. People try so hard to find who they are. And the problem with all of these things is that they can change at a snap of a finger. Like you can lose your job. I can lose my arms and not be able to bench anymore. So it's not healthy to put your identity in something that can be taken away. The only thing that people cannot take away from you is Jesus. So that's where I put my identity in. I am a child of God. I know he is always with me, and it's his will that will be done and not mine. I don't have to worry about anything because he is in control, and he is always just and right. And Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So yeah, that's a little far from dealing with confidence issues when gaining weight. But I think that is the root of the problem, like where your identity lies. So yeah, find where you put your identity and make it be something that can never ever change and never ever leave you, which I'm sorry, there's only one answer, which is Jesus. So anyway, second part of that is how to push yourself more. Of course, when you start out, you don't know how much is RP10, how hard something feels, like the RPE. So in my RPE video right here, I talk about RP training and what that is. Check it out. And when you judge your RPE on your lifts, like actually be honest with what RPE something is. So if you really can do 3 more reps, write RP7. In that video, I also talked about anchoring sets, which is one set where you do it to RP10. And with that, you could actually learn what absolute failure is. So on some exercises like the leg extension, sometimes when you get to like the 10th rep, you feel like your legs are burning. But if you go until failure, so you go until you physically cannot push for another rep, or you can only do half a rep and can't finish the rep, usually you could do much more than you could think you can do. So by doing these anchoring sets, you actually know where your limit is, and then you can work backwards from that. So you know you actually trained to an RP8 instead of just training to what feels hard. And lastly, I'll just say that the weight feeling heavy doesn't mean you can't lift it. Like a lot of times the weight feels super heavy, but I can still lift it for several reps. How heavy something feels is just how you perceive it, but it doesn't exactly correlate with your strength. Of course it correlates generally, but it's not super exact. So there are a lot of times where I'm a little bit more fatigued and the weight just feels heavy, but I can still lift it for a lot of reps. Those are my tips for how to push yourself more. Also, it's really good to listen to good music and that kind of stuff. I personally don't like having a friend when I work out. Every single person is different with the music they listen to and if they like people around them like yelling for them and that kind of stuff. So just find what works best for you. And yeah, so that's basically it for this week's video. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them down in the comments below. Like the video if you did, and subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you don't want to miss another video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.